Good evening. I have been working hard. Hopefully, it has paid off to at least attempt to get a better view and less light and all that jazz. So, obviously, you can see the reflection in the patio door, so you can see the wee ring light reflection, etc. But yeah, here we are. So, I've put a wee what's the word? I've put a pin at the top of the chat. Oh, Claire, you're on! Yay! How cool is that? Um, so yes, I've put a pin at the top, just a little reminder, just letting you know a little bit about what we're doing tonight. If you want to chat, hi Denise. If you want to speak, if you've never been on before, you need to be subscribed to my channel. It will let you interactively chat in the chat box, which is great. And if you, again, just a reminder, it's not therapy, it's not coaching, it's not a webinar, it's just me and my book and reading a passage from it and basically just going in order of my life. But the goal of this isn't just, I can answer questions if you've got anything you want to know about me or my life. Everybody knows I'm an open book, but ultimately, the goal really is here that you, through what's going on in my life and how I've experienced things, you might have your own version of that, and there might be some emotional similarities. There might be ways that you can think, God, I relate to that. And there might be things that I talk about, how I've made shifts and changes that you think, well, I wonder what could be possible for me if I was to embark on that, whether it's the inner work or self-reflection, or might even just be a golden nugget from the conversation. So tonight's quite a short passage in the sense of how much I'm going to read, but I do want to add some depth to it tonight. So I'm wide open for conversation if anyone wants to chat. So we've only got a few on tonight, so there's less people for having conversation. But if you do want to speak, please just pop it in the chat. But it's great to see yourself, Claire and Denise. I just love seeing your names popping up. So without further ado, if anyone else joins us, then so be it. But let's just crack on. So I've put some posts out in social media today talking about how things that happen when we're a child can often have an impact of when we're an adult, because a lot of things happen. Our nervous system gets impacted, and it can lead us through adult life making different decisions, things that maybe we wouldn't want to do ordinarily, or it can lead us to respond to situations in ways that doesn't seem logical or reasonable. I'm thinking of catastrophizing there. Now, I want to share a little bit about this part of my story, because for me, a lot of it started there, but it didn't sit there in isolation. There were moments that things changed, and then there were also moments when new situations happened, and it was like I'm going back to being that kid again. So let's see what I've got to say tonight, and feel free to share, reflect, or add your own insight. So, my dad, he was in my life from when I was born till around about 16, almost 17, but somewhere in that space is where it started to get the grey area, sort of between 16 and 17. So, before we begin, let me be honest. I'll share what feels proper and necessary for this book, but perhaps there's another book for me to create later that explores those earlier parts of my life a little bit more deeply. Now isn't the time for that though, but it would be remiss of me not to mention my past, as it shaped many of my world views in childhood and beyond. And the experience also set me on a path that was self-destructive for quite a long time. So my dad, what about him? He's a hard worker. I'll never deny that. And honestly, it makes me quite sad how it all unravelled. I think he had his own challenges from childhood that he never faced. And it's a shame that he didn't realise the energy he was passing down, it wasn't great. So let's take a look at a typical weekend in our house back when I was a kid. The curtains closed, even when the sun was blazing, and there was a horse racing on the TV, because he liked to bet on the horses. Cigarettes filled the room with smoke so thick you could cut it with a knife. There was always an edge in the air, and moving through the house never felt like a breeze. It was a strange feeling, and I often felt uncomfortable in my own home. We never knew what mood he'd be in, and years of experience in that rewires your brain, your nervous system to be alert a lot more than it should or that it really ought to be. It's no surprise that right up until I was about 17, I bit my nails so badly that they'd fall off at the nail bed, and I picked my eyelashes too. But nobody linked that to anxiety back then. Now we know better. Now we know these were some of my coping mechanisms to soothe my rattled nervous system. And for transparency, my dad's bark was worse than his bite to me. The fear of not knowing the mood and how to manage it left me a wreck. Sometimes he sounded verbally aggressive and loud, occasionally playful, but often he wasn't home. So I'd sit dreading what was about to unfold. I know abandonment has played a big part in my life and my choices, but when he left, I felt a huge sigh of relief. I could breathe again, and I felt a sense of how peace flowed through me. I knew the road ahead was going to be difficult, but it couldn't have been harder than what had happened in the last 16 years or so. I also knew that somehow we would figure out what to do next. And when I say we, I mean my mum and me. What I've come to realise is that abandonment isn't just about leaving physically, it starts way before that. In fact, the physical part is often just the door finally closing. Looking back, I know what was missing: a family unit that felt safe, secure, and filled with laughter and joy. When I think about how I am with my nieces now, I can see how much was missing for me and my sisters. You know, that kind of encouragement and self belief that's born from a supportive, healthy unit. So I want to leave it at that for the reading part tonight. And a couple of things I wanted to highlight from it. And if anyone wants to share anything, reflect anything, does anything resonate or anything at all, by all means, I'll keep an eye in the chat box. But the couple of things I wanted to highlight tonight were sort of specifically around how our nervous system, it's when we experience a lot of fears, and whether they're real or perceived, the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So even when I was young, I may have had some subconscious truths where in the past I'd known my dad had been destructive or aggressive, and it got me worried. So for the future, it meant that I would often predict that this was going to be the case. And over a period of time, all the way into adulthood, that creates that hypervigilance, a self-protection, and a real sort of sense of expecting the worst. So for anyone else out there who, whether it happened in childhood, maybe it happened in adulthood. In fact, somebody today on social media commented that didn't happen to them in childhood, but it happened to them in a working context where they had such a horrific work experience that it just totally destroyed them, and their whole nervous system was shot to bits. And it meant that even when they were in a good situation, they still expected the worst because of the catastrophizing. Now, I just want to show that this is something that we can hold on to for years. And even when something happens later, we might think to ourselves, well, where did that come from? Why am I not able to manage this situation? Maybe deal with difficult conversations, maybe deal with difficult people. But if we've gone through an experience in our life where we played down, played small, stayed quiet, did things to keep the peace, that was our protective mechanism. So it's natural that we would want to shy away from it. But that constant thinking the worst, what it does is it constantly puts us into protection mode, and it actually stops us taking steps forward. So if you're constantly in fight or flight, you want to call it in that kind of language, or that catastrophizing phase, then it's very difficult to make good decisions all the time because you're operating from fear. You're not operating from sound mind and clear decisions. You're also not really listening to your true inner self because you're likely operating from more of a survival. And that's fine periodically because we all get in situations that are difficult. But if that's a prolonged thing, think about how many years in a row you could be making decisions if they're based on fear and never truly going after what you want. That was me. So this experience of understanding what happens with our nervous system, whether it's childhood or some other point, we can live with that and it can create that long-term catastrophizing. So I'm just going to read some of the comments here. So Claire, you were mentioning you felt that about your brother, the fear of what mood they would be in. It means your mood hangs on theirs. I mean, I couldn't really have put it better myself, and that is exactly it. The unknown, because your subconscious holds your emotions also, but equally it's holds on to memories, and it particularly holds on to memories that are not so pleasant. Have you ever wondered why sometimes you'll sit and you think, God, why do I already remember the bad things that have happened to me, or the awful things, but yet the good things don't spring to mind easily? Well, your subconscious, what it wants to do, it needs to log these deeply into your memory so that you can then be prepared for something like that happening again. But here's the thing, is it really happening again? Or is this your perceived fear based on something you think might happen because of old stories that have kept you stuck in that sort of catastrophizing zone from as far back it could be from childhood? So that's a really good example, Claire. Obviously, mine was my dad, and yours was your brother. And I wonder, just in life, just general conversation for anyone that's on, does anybody have the experience periods of catastrophizing that's impacted their progress in life, or maybe it resonates right now? I don't know. And if you have and you've moved through it, I'd love to hear more about, what was it you did, or more importantly, what your life was like before, and maybe what it looks like if you have worked on it, and then where you've got yourself to, because you can look forward now expecting the best as often as possible and not always expecting the worst. So if anyone's got anything they want to share, stick it in the chat and we can certainly shoot the breeze over that. And I am going to go back to one other part while I'm just waiting to see if anyone's got anything they want to chip in. No pressure, by the way. Clearly, I like the sound of my own voice, so I am quite happy to ramble on here. But when it's a few of us as well, then we don't have to stay on too late tonight. We can just explore the passages of the book, and I can let you go and enjoy the rest of your night. But there is one other part, and it's around abandonment. But actually, let's come back to that, because someone's just popped something on there. Greg, so a recent work situation where you reacted the same as the child behaviours, trying to keep the pace, where an individual had toxic behaviours. Honestly, this is, and I'm very grateful you shared this, because I know it can be quite vulnerable to put it out there and say what's happened and how you feel. But a lot of people are actually living, operating from that place, because it's more common than people think. And that child self of ours, if we haven't taken any sort of work on ourselves where we've gone inward, explored it, brought ourselves to this position where we can respond instead of react, or in your case, it's the keeping the peace. Listen, I can relate to that. sometimes I'll think about my own life and I think, God, you know what? I'm just going to pick my battles here. And that's the thing, there's a difference. Not everything has to be a stand up and, a challenging conversation or a deep sort of discussion. But there are times, if you know in your heart, when you think, do you know what? I shied away from that out of a fear based um, position, and I really would have preferred to have dealt with it like this, and this. Then that's recognizing that perhaps that child version of you is operating instead of the adult you. And for anyone experiencing that, whether yourself, Greg, or anybody else, then one of the things I would highly recommend, if you don't know much about it, or go and do some research and read about on it, is one of the things you might like to explore is inner child work, because what that allows us to do is explore that child version of ourselves, look at when we weren't supported, when we were vulnerable. We go back and reparent ourselves so that when we're in these situations which are happening in our adult life, because that's what's happening, we're all older now, then from there, if something comes up, we're able to recognize, right, okay, is this my child me that's talking? Because I'm not that person anymore. This is who I am. I'm in my 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever. I'm experienced, I'm qualified, I'm successful, I'm in a relationship, or I'm, a boss babe, whatever it is that you are. You're able to say to yourself, actually, I'm not that kid anymore. So, how would the adult me want to handle this? And actually, the more that we stretch ourselves to do that in a way that feels good for us, assertive, not what's the word like, uh, so not looking for deep conflict. I don't mean that, but we have to be able to assert ourselves in the right way so that we get our point across and we're heard. It sometimes will go our way and sometimes it won't, and we learn to realize that what happened to us as a kid isn't happening to us as an adult. If we were left to one side and not taken care of or abandoned or not listened to and dismissed or rejected or anything, then we can often bring this into adulthood. And each time something happens, it's like, oh God, it's like taking a bullet. It's like, I'm that kid again. That's not what's happening. It might have a similar feeling because it's lodged in your nervous system, but it's not that that's happening. It's just someone saying they're busy. It's someone saying, I don't like that piece of work you did. It's someone saying, oh, I don't have time for this today. It's not the same as what you went through when you were younger. So I hope from that you can sort of piece some of that together. And you can always individually reach out to me. It's not a problem to ask any questions. But from a perspective of what we're speaking about, some of the things I would sort of recommend if you're a classic catastrophizer and you expect the worst and you see the worst and it stops you moving forward, then you want to focus on some nervous system regulation. So that's working with mind and body connection, being able to regulate yourself in a way that allows you to respond instead of reacting in situations, and that allows you to reframe and gain perspective. Things like, is that true? Or is that a story I'm telling myself? That kind of narrative. Because it's so easy for us to start to make things up based on previous experiences. But just because it's happened before doesn't mean it's going to happen every time, especially if you've moved out of a situation that in the past had been problematic. Let's say it was a job situation and I move out the job and I'm in a new place. If I'm still working on my old dysregulated nervous system, I'm thinking that the new job's going to go Pete Tong as well. But actually, I'm then going to stop myself fully immersing myself in this new career, this new life, these new experiences. So, like if I went and I had one dodgy apartment, do I think all my apartments are going to go dodgy? Or I had one flight that couldn't land because of the wind, is that going to stop me travelling? Because, oh my God, what if every flight has a problem? Catastrophising. So I have to bring it back, learn how to reframe it in a way that's asking, is that true, or is that a story I'm telling myself? And then challenge ourselves so that we can move past those fears, because they will limit you into living the life that you want. So I'll close that part on that, and I want to very briefly just touch on the abandonment side. Just, I don't know, anyone out there listening to this, it might resonate, it might not. When I was writing this, um, it's actually when this unfolded for me. Not that I hadn't done the work on it, but it became very clear in my mind about what actually had happened. And I stand by what I say about my experience that for the abandonment side of things, when that one parent leaves the family, it's that's the physical thing, but lots of things can happen long before that. And it's where you don't feel connected, you don't feel heard, you don't feel respected. And, you know, our parents all did the best they could. I'd like to think that anyway. That's what I hope. Doesn't mean they got it right, but it's what the tools they worked with their experience of life. But that sort of sense of abandonment for me, and the experience of that nervous system dysregulation, where then the catastrophizing and the fear based, it did lead into a lot of fear based decision making when I was older. I led from a place of I need safety because instinctively that was the thing I didn't feel all the time. So everything that I was doing was coming from a place of clinging on, and sometimes clinging on to the wrong things or the wrong people, the wrong experiences, the wrong jobs, the whole shooting match. But as you go through that process of knowing yourself more and doing that work, it really does start to turn how you experience life. So sometimes you don't even know it fully until you experience other things. It wasn't all bad at home for me. And there was a lot of fun. Like, I look at my nieces now and I think, oh God, remember we used to play make up a play. Now they do TikTok dances, right? But we used to create plays and sing and, make little the little things you give out in a theatre show. Can't remember the word for it right now. And you buy them and it tells you who's in it and what they're going to do. That we would write them out and make them and give them to our family. So that was my vibe of that. So there was still some fun times. But I still know the way that we are with my nieces. When I see us, me and my sisters as adults, I know the difference between what it felt like when I was a kid, because I was very insular and I went into myself, and those senses of not feeling heard and understood, and it just made me go inward and become very hyper independent and feel that I was going to have to fly it solo a lot of the time. And that is where fear-based thinking, catastrophizing and all that came from. And the abandonment, add that in there, even though I wanted my dad to go because it was safer. Where's the role model? Where's the person you look up to? I don't know if anyone else has an experience of what it's like with a parent that's gone, or a parent that's distant, or a parent that doesn't understand you, or both parents not there. I don't know. But for me, that was my experience, and it definitely travelled all the way through life for me. And they do say a girl's first relationship, she looks up to the man in her life. It's going to be her dad. And when that person's not a role model or isn't there, it can have quite an impact on your life, on your choices, self-worth, choosing the wrong people, not valuing yourself. And yeah, all of that I'm sure will come in the rest of the book. But for now, I'd love to just ask if anyone has anything else they'd like to share, whether it's in the parent side with abandonment, anything that they've listened to that they've thought, that didn't quite happen to me, but this was my experience of it. And now that I'm thinking it, you maybe have different insights, different thoughts, maybe some comments, anything like that at all. By all means, the comment section is opened. And while you're doing that, I will have a quick look and just share that as an adult now who has done such a lot of work on herself, like a lot, I know I'm the best version of myself now. I'm always evolving, we always are. but we can make an impact, or I can now, on how my nieces live their life, the impact on my sisters and how they live their life. I'm always challenging them to be the best version of themselves, always cheering them on, encouraging them, getting them to face fear and do things that ordinarily they just would never have done before. But they are looking in on me, seeing me taking all these risks and changes. They're trusting that, we can all do it if we come together and support one another. And I think that's the best you can do. Now, I have that with my sisters and some extremely great friendships, and I'm very lucky for that. I don't know what you've all got going out there, but there are going to be people in your life, whether it's someone you talk to, a good friend, a parent, a partner, or I don't know what that looks like for you, but there are people out there that are willing to cheer you on and support you on that journey. And I would just say, always remember, you're not that kid. Whatever happened to you then, you're here now as an adult. Look at how far you've come. Look at the journey that you've been through. Maybe even as a kid, you never even imagined you would get to this place and have had the experiences you've had. So don't forget that on this journey. And yeah, I just want you to know that I'm championing you no matter what, because I think everyone deserves a beautiful life. Everyone deserves to live freely and happily and be able to face challenges, whatever that looks like. And your friends have become your family. I love that, Claire, because family isn't always blood. It's a different meaning for everyone. And Lee, childhood family experiences also due to your dad, but also happy with work situations, feel catastrophizing has become the only way I know how to survive at times. Not all bad, but yeah, listen, I can totally relate. And it's so amazing that you shared that, being vulnerable, and you, Claire, to say out loud that your friends have become your family. That's a huge thing, because a lot of people don't even understand things like that. The fact that you are prepared to create a network of people that are your champions and feel so connected to them is just absolutely amazing, because it's not easy, if you struggle with your family unit, to live with that and also build out great friendships. So kudos to you, Claire, for doing that. Denise, sometimes it's the trying to turn off the scanning of every room for danger. Honestly, Denise, this is exactly what I was talking about. It's the hypervigilance. And see, each time you go through something in life, let's say a new experience, a new challenge, remember, a part of our brain goes, oh, and we stop, and we start to go into that scan mode again, whether it's visually or you feel it in your body. You start to think, oh, new people, new places, new things. I don't know if I can do that. Or my heart rate's going up and I'm not sure how I'm coping. That's part of the journey. And the more that you can come back to center, the more that you can ground yourself, remind yourself you're not who you were. You're not even who you were a week ago, because we've come through so much all the time and we come out the other side of it. Sometimes I don't even know how I manage to keep going, because believe me, guys, it's no cherry, a bowl of cherries. There's a lot of hard challenges, but the outcomes are so amazing that it would be crazy not to do things that I do. But I feel the same for pretty much everyone I'm speaking to tonight. Anything's possible for anyone. It's really down to how much you're going to reflect within yourself. Look at the parts where you know that you're struggling and think, well, what are the ways that I can actually move forward? What tools do I know? Who can I reach out to talk to? Where can I engage with someone to work with if you want to do deep work? What are the environments that are healthy and supportive for me? All of those things, there's stuff out there everywhere on the internet, not even just with me, that can bring you back to center. And then remind yourself of who you really are daily, like daily, because I have to do that for myself all the time. I just want to tap back in this one from Lee, because I didn't get a chance to really talk about it in depth. They're fearing the worst or preparing for it mentally feels like self-protection, but it's also yes, yes, yes. So Lee, that is a bang on, right? So this is a real key thing for anybody who I sometimes talk about this in myself and I think, right, am I scared or am I self sabotaging? Or is it a genuine, this is a risk that needs thought process and it needs me to do research and then I can act because it's a crazy move if I do it without thinking. There's actually a difference in there. So, see, when I find myself doing things like I don't particularly enjoy, like tidying up, putting a washing on, faffing through tech stuff that I don't need to do, that's usually a good sign for me that I'm in avoidance. Or I'll put Netflix on and I can't enjoy it because I know inside I'm wrangling with the fact that I know I should be doing something else. So if you're recognizing the discomfort and the worry and the fear that's coming from not doing, the cure for that, or I shouldn't say the word cure, but you know what I mean, the antidote to that is action. Even if that action step is listening to an audio for meditation, going out for a mindful walk, journaling for 5 minutes about all your strengths and everything you're capable of. Is it doing 5 minutes research in the area that's giving you the fear? Is it lifting up the phone to a friend and just feeling like you can exhale again? There's no need to stay trapped in it because it's a mental prison, but you can set yourself free by deciding what is the best tool for me right now so that I can move myself a baby step. Never mind the end goal. If you focus on the end goal, you'll get nowhere because it's too big. So you need to take all the steps all the way back. And that goes for you, Greg, whether it's having a stepping up for yourself in the work situation. Maybe you don't have to sit with the person and have a full conversation. Maybe you go away, maybe you reflect on it, maybe you take some notes and bullet points, maybe you say it out loud in the mirror. It's all the crazy things I do. Record your voice, say it over and over, exposure therapy. And then when you go in and have the meeting, it almost feels like I've actually done this already. So I'm quite prepared and feel enabled and assertive, but without feeling like I'm cowing down to anything or being argumentative. So we're all the same. We can take a step back, we can rehearse, we can plan, we can research. But see if you take even this tiny micro step, it will pull you out of the catastrophizing, the worry, the fear, the stagnation. So listen, I feel you, I get it. I'm just the same. Yesterday, I actually was like, ugh, lying on the edge of the sofa going, oh, I feel a bit meh. And I was like, right, what is this all about? But I know what it's about. I'm wriggling out of the last of the year of the snake. It's the Chinese New Year, 17th of February, we move into the fire horse. I don't know a huge about it, but I tell you this, I know I've been in the year of the snake, which is shedding a skin, because for the last year, I feel like I've evolved so much, I don't even recognise myself. And we're in that process. We're still going, still moving forward, still shedding. And that meh feeling is just part of that journey. So what you were saying there, Greg, common reaction is oversharing rather than dealing with the situation. Oh God, yeah. Like, who wouldn't want to go to the side and talk about it, ruminate, procrastinate, go over it? This is what we all do. See, instead of talking about the thing we need to go and do, instead of talking about it, see if you just act on it, it'll be done and dusted and you'll be moved on to the next thing. It pulls you out of it. But what most of us will do, I'll phone somebody and just go on and on and on. And then when I finish with them, I'll go on to somebody else and I'll talk about it. I'll go and sit and chat to them, or I'll go and distract myself. But actually, you know yourself. You know you, right? You know who you are and you know what you're capable of. So learning to trust yourself through peace, calm, centered, grounded, responding over reacting, and building that self trust so that when the moment comes, you can act, or you can pause so that you don't react, go away, reflect, and then ask for a meeting, phone a friend, do whatever it is that you need to do so that you can take those steps forward. But just remember, guys, none of you are that kid. If you were a kid and it was impacted in childhood, every time you get these feelings that come up and that you want to run away from things and put your head under the covers, or maybe you're in oversharing mode, it's a very common trauma response to things. I don't want to get too much into that in these chats, but it is. Then the goal is just to reflect on who you are, reflect on how far you've come, look at where you are in your life, look at how much you've shed the skin in the year of the snake, and just trust that that is all part of the bigger picture. If it's career, your new career, new jobs, relationships, perhaps it's travel, perhaps it's just who am I as I enter into this brand new year, because I get to choose and I choose me. So, on that note, because I'm on my wee soapbox and I love just bigging you all up and trying to offer as much value as possible, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. And I love you and leave you. And you're definitely an oversharer when life gets tricky. There you go, Claire. Look, but listen, we all have our moments. Sometimes I challenge myself and I just want to say, right, stop getting on about it, close the book and take action. It's a balancing act. It's definitely a balancing act. But here's the thing, you know more within yourself than you think you do. Sometimes taking a step back to reflect in isolation is the right thing. And sometimes you do need to get on the phone with a glass of wine or a cup of tea and chat to your friend. Just pick the right one. Just recognise when you're dragging it out and you're not acting and you're becoming self-sabotage rather than relief. It's self-sabotage after that. So yeah, thanks very much everybody for tonight. I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to have you all on for all night. Thanks for the amazing input that you've all gave me. And whoever's listening to this on catch up, I think all the chat will be there tonight. You're so welcome. Oh, Lee, thanks very much. It was so good to have you. I knew you would get a lot out of this. So please come on. And join in. And Denise, it was brilliant to see you tonight as well. So thanks for everybody for your input. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you next Tuesday if you're on, or catch it on the replay. See you later.